What I'm going to say is basically a story, because anything anybody says about anything is basically a story. It's not necessarily the truth. It's not a true story. It's not a fake story. It's just a story, maybe a human story. And as you know, all about awareness awakening to itself is the awakening story. And there are various chapters and paragraphs, and as many people as there are on the planet, that's how many stories there are about awakening. And what I'm going to talk about now is the movement between what I call transcendent awareness and embodied awareness. Transcendent awareness for me is very much like thinking, like abstract thinking. It's removed from a physical reality, transcendence. And the path towards transcendence, the non-dual path, the neti-neti path, takes a while. It took me a while. I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, not this, until I experienced a moment of stillness, of apparent, essential, elemental emptiness, a quiet mind. And I found my mind created associations around that experience. The idea of transcendence is I'm not this body, I'm not the sensations in the body, I have a body, I am aware of them. What is aware of them? Formless awareness, witnessing. I have thoughts, but I'm not these thoughts. Thoughts in themselves are not aware of themselves as thoughts, but something is aware of them, that's awareness itself. I have emotions, but I'm not these emotions. I have thoughts, but I'm not these thoughts. I have a body, but I'm not this body, etc., etc., etc. And then I began to think and feel along the lines of transcendence. It seemed very appealing to me that I would be able to transcend the body, transcend the emotions, transcend suffering, transcend anxiety. I could, in essence, transcend and leave my body. I was very much keen on looking for out-of-body experiences, OBEs, to establish and anchor this truth of transcendent awareness, so that I could somehow magically transcend the body and go up like a balloon and leave all this misery and suffering and uncertainty behind me. And I pursued that for many, many years. For many years. Believing that there was this higher truth that was a transcendent truth. And intellectually you could talk about there's no one here, there's no doer, there's no me, requiring nothing, needing nothing, wanting nothing, being nobody, etc., etc. It becomes like a chant. It became like a chant. And then one day my son died. And all this transcendent awareness that I allowed myself to think I had went out the door. Felt like my life had imploded. And the words came in, you know, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of tears. Grief was overwhelming. My heart was broken. I was overwhelmed with emotions and grief and sorrow. I tumbled into embodied awareness, not because I chose it, because life presented it to me. And it's been a whole other journey for these last 6 years now. of embodied awareness. And embodied awareness took this approach. My initial intuitive reaction was to defend against the pain of sorrow, the pain of loss. And it became very apparent I had become attached to the form of my son. I wanted to hold him, I wanted to hug him, I wanted to kiss him, I wanted to take care of him, to protect him. I was attached to form despite all this transcendent stuff I have been telling myself. But there was a part of me that said, you know, if you protect the heart, if I protect the heart from the pain I was feeling, I would lose my son twice. One in form and one by hiding away from the pain. So I said no. And it did feel unbearable. The pain, the suffering did feel unbearable. But I did not drown in a sea of tears because there was no sea. It was all hyperbole. And the stories about how this suffering is going to be like this forever and I can't live this way. I don't want to live this way. Transcendent awareness is awareness of the mind. Embodied awareness is awareness of the heart. The heart broke open. I can't take it. It's broken. I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take it. Until you find out you can take it. And the body heals and the heart heals. And then it gets broken again and it heals again. And so that's how the heart is tenderized. That's how love and kindness and compassion comes about. When you understand the nature of someone's suffering as your own suffering. An embodied awareness was me jumping into the body, into life, into it all. And I learned and recognized and had a whole different approach with impermanence. Grief does not last forever. Sorrow does not last forever. Insights don't last forever. This body does not last forever. Anything in form does not last forever. Everything is in fact impermanent. It's the holding on, it's the contracting that creates pain and suffering. It sounds counterintuitive. I don't want to embrace pain. I'm not a masochist. I don't want to live like this forever. Those are the stories and the narratives. Put that aside for a moment. And just be with the feeling, whatever that feeling is. And see how it changes. An awakening is not a guarantee that you will not feel pain anymore. An awakening is not a form of psychotherapy. It doesn't bring about mental health, so-called mental health. You awaken to this is it. All parts of it are it. You can try to run away and build castle walls around yourself, around your heart, to protect yourself against this world. How can you protect yourself against self? You fall into it. You fall into the form. You fall into the aches. And you find crying happens and laughing happens and confusion happens, compassion happens, aloneness happens, companionship happens. It happens. And the hard part for me was learning how not to hold on. How not to hold on. Because if I let go of the memory, I would lose my son. If I let go of the pain, I would lose that connection with him. And in this idea, this concept of connected, that's this transcendent, abstract idea, I felt and experienced the other side of that coin. Not always, but enough times to give me comfort, whoever and whatever I am. Because we are, paradoxically, both individual self and spiritual self and psychological self and emotional self, cosmic self, all at the same time, simultaneously. And in a moment of stillness, where there is no boundary of separation experienced, and the story of he's gone stops, and the story of I'm here stops, and it's simply presence. I've had that experience driving my car or walking. When it is his heart beating in my chest, his lungs breathing in my chest, and I see the world with his eyes, and I feel as he felt. And he is alive. He is alive in my heart, he is alive in my mind, he's alive in his sister's heart, in his mother's heart, in his friend's heart, in his brother's heart, in his brother's mind. He is alive. Living and dying happens. And sometimes, believe it or not, it's hard to tell the difference. Other than there is a story that I am alive, and there is a story I am dying. It's horrible. Cosmic consciousness awakens to its formless nature into human consciousness through this body of ours. And this form has a temporary shelf life. 22 hours, 23 years, 50 years, 70 years, 80, 90, a temporary shelf life. And it's an opportunity in this body to awaken to human consciousness. So I spent almost 30, 40 years pursuing transcendent awareness, and the last 6 or 7 embodied awareness. There is a rhythm here that is trying to find its balance. This is the journey. This crazy life, these ups and downs, these apparent ups and downs, they are the journey. You don't sidestep in awareness, awakening to itself, sidestep pain, avoid this, avoid that, avoid the ups, avoid the downs. It's all of it. This is it. The newborn baby and the body rotting in the ditch somewhere. It's a loving embrace between lovers and a criminal shooting down somebody for their shoes. It's all of this. And the fairy tales of heaven and hell and angels, and that's what they are. So it's all here. It's already here, always, always, already here, as it is. Awakening in some part means seeing that. Doesn't mean accepting that's the way it is and there's nothing to do. You react as you react. You react with horror. You react with compassion. You turn away from the individual. You give aid. It is as it is. You may have this self-image of yourself as a loving, compassionate person, and yet you walk by a homeless person, you don't give them a dime or a dollar or a buck, or you turn away. This awakening gets rid of that. You need to get rid of that image for a while, for a moment, to experience. This is it. And it's not always going to be bliss and happiness. You know? It's not. It is what it is. And sometimes there's anger, righteous anger, and sometimes there's whimpering, and sometimes there's fear and consternation, and sometimes it's just humbleness and humility and thankfulness and gratitude for what you have. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, you focus on what you have. At least you can walk around. At least you have a roof over your head. At least, you know, Oh, those are small things. Oh yeah, well that's life. Small things, not gigantic things. And awakening isn't, though it can be. Fireworks, transcendent awareness, embodied awareness. One is not preferred over the other. There's no preference. These are just paths. And there is a movement between these two. Transcendent awareness, embodied awareness. And there is a balance that ultimately finds itself. And it takes time. I haven't found my center point. I'm just on this journey on planet ship Earth. Be kind to yourself in this process, if you can. If not, as you are right now, without any forced idea of change or transformation or alteration or improvement, you are a manifestation of the universe. You are a manifestation of the cosmos, and for some folks, if this language floats their boat, you are a manifestation of the divine exactly as you are right now.